Welcome to the Clarksville Now candidate interviews for the December 2025 election. I'm Editor-in-Chief Chris Smith, and today we're talking to State House Representative Aftyn Behn, a candidate for U.S. Congress District 7. Thank you for joining us.
Very excited to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
So we want to talk about first-year qualifications for the office. Can you talk to us a little bit about what led you to this role and what you think you're qualified?
Yeah, so I decided to run for the seat because Tennesseans are paying more because Washington is broken, and we are dealing with an affordability crisis in Clarksville and in Tennessee. So I pride myself as a lifelong Girl Scout, so I've always been driven to community service, devoted to my community, making things better. And I decided to get involved as a community organizer working for an organization called the Tennessee Justice Center in 2017. And launched my career as a healthcare advocate. And so my first organizing gig was standing outside the Houston County Hospital in Houston County, which is a public hospital, and rallying folks to raise awareness about the cuts to Medicaid in the Affordable Care Act in 2017. And so I have a track record raising awareness about healthcare cuts, how to make healthcare more affordable. And then I ran for the state legislature in 2023. So I'm a sitting state legislator. My district represents Nashville, including downtown Nashville, which is in the 7th Congressional District. So Broadway, you share a congressional district with Broadway and the Bachelorettes. Yeah. And in the legislature, I have had a track record of winning. I filed a lawsuit against the state of Tennessee to protect your First Amendment right to talk about certain issues, which is important for media, I imagine, and have a track record of bipartisanship. I filed a bill with a Republican in the state house to remove the investigative processes for sexual harassment out of the legislature and into a third party within the Attorney General's office. So I have a track record of winning, doing good things, and fighting for my community.
Awesome. All right, and let's talk a little bit about some of the issues in the race. First, on immigration, Congress's failure to act on immigration reform has pretty much come to a head, and we've seen that recently with the ICE raids and the protests against them. What are your priorities with immigration, and what do you think it might take to reach a compromise or some sort of a solution?
Yeah, I think both parties are culpable when it comes to resisting immigration reform because they both run on it, right? And so there's no incentive to change it. But we absolutely do need comprehensive immigration reform. And I don't believe that violent offenders should be on our streets. So number one. Two is we need a pathway to citizenship specifically for the Dreamers, right? These are kids that came over. Their parents are undocumented, but they are legal U.S. citizens. And we need a comprehensive fix to the problem, and which also includes 21st century border process. And so I think, the way that we deal with asylum seekers, the way that we deal with immigration right now has not met the times. And so we absolutely need to reform it to do so.
All righty. What about on, let's talk about healthcare, and you spoke on it a little bit there. What are your feelings on the current healthcare situation, and what do you think needs to be done to improve it?
So 2 weeks ago, I received an email from a lifelong Republican that lives in Clarksville, and he described his current situation, which is he pays around $50 for a plan on the Affordable Care Act, right? Marketplace. And if Congress does not act to renew these subsidies, his premium will go up to $500. These are working Tennesseans that leverage the marketplace to pay for health care for their families, and they won't be able to do it if these subsidies aren't renewed. So my first acute move would be to ensure that these subsidies are renewed, right? Because premiums are about to increase 40% across almost all healthcare plans in the state. And so we're about to see that too, is reversing cuts to TennCare through the big ugly bill, as I call it. You probably call it something else. But in July, there was this, Congress passed a bill that decimated TennCare, our state Medicaid program. And it's going to hurt rural hospitals. It's going to hurt people in nursing homes, families with kids with severe disabilities. And so it'd be to reverse those cuts, to fix the spikes in the healthcare premiums, which we can shore up the marketplace to do that. And then to make sure that Medicaid and marketplace subsidies remain. And so, shoring up the issue, dealing with the problem, resolving the issue, and then making sure those changes are codified in perpetuity.
Yeah. Did you have any role in the when Tennessee rejected the Medicaid funding? What was your take on all of that?
Yeah.
As that developed?
So I moved back. I'm from East Tennessee, and I moved back to Tennessee after the end of 2016. And if you remember, Governor Haslam tried to pass Insure Tennessee. It was the spring of 2016. Unfortunately, it failed. And it's sad because we are leaving hundreds of millions of federal dollars on the table that we could use to insure working Tennesseans. And so I have been part of I'd say the perennial struggle to expand Medicaid, first as a community organizer, which we tried in 2017, spring of 2017, and then every year, and then now as a state legislator. And it's just a really dumb move, right? Like, I think it's just a dumb resolution to not expand it because you don't want federal government intervention when you are a state that relies on a federal government quite heavily.
Okay. More locally here, as Interstate 24 has basically is clogged up a lot of the time between Clarksville and Nashville. What would you do to ensure improvements to I-24 from the state line to Nashville? So
just some context for your listeners. So in the state legislature, I've learned, I sit on the Transportation Committee, which I've really loved. I've learned a lot. And so this year, what we have discovered, there's a committee in the Tennessee legislature called TASER, and it studies kind of across government sectors what is happening and then creates a report. TASER published a report showing that we have a $73 billion backlog in infrastructure needs, almost $40 billion in highways alone, right? So this is a problem that not only is compounded by the federal government, but also at the state level. And as a legislator, I also deeply care about transportation. We have some of the worst potholes in the country. I'm sure you can attest to that. We have some of the worst congestion. The cost of the cost of car repairs due to the issues with our roads cost a Tennessee family over $900 a year. They've been able to quantify that. So people are wasting time and money on our highways, and we need to figure out a better solution. I did have one in the legislature, which was pot for potholes, which would have legalized the recreational sale of marijuana, and then that money would have gone to the General Highway Fund. And Larry's Nursery, which is a small business in Montgomery County, actually changed their marquee to say legalize pothole repairs, which I thought was great. So shout out to Larry's Nursery, big fan. But as your next Congresswoman, what I would seek to do is expand funding through the Federal Highway Administration's grant programs. I've realized that we've left a lot of money on the table by not leveraging that funding. Additionally, what we could do is work with the Kentucky delegation with I-24 regional mobility and safety corridor projects. And this would be a multi-state collaboration between us and the federal delegation in Kentucky right across our border, supported by federal transportation earmarks. So it's identifying, a landscape assessment as to what money is being left on the table, and then how can we work across state lines to ensure that we are bringing that funding home. And then finally, multimodal transportation. Light rail is really popular. It's a very popular idea. We just haven't had the political will to execute it. And so I would be an absolute supporter of ensuring a light rail from Clarksville to Nashville. I think that'd be really fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. So that's it for the questions that I had. Is there any particular issue that you wanted to discuss or bring up with our audience?
Yeah, I think as I said in my beginning statement that we are dealing with a crisis of affordability. And I'm a millennial. I'm 35. I can't afford a house in Nashville where I live to buy a house. I can't afford to buy a house. I can't afford to start a family because of the cost of daycare and children. And so my generation has been left with an economy that inhibits us from reaching the American dream, from accessing opportunities. And that's a big problem. And we want people to stay in Tennessee. We want them to thrive. We want them to start families. We want them to buy houses. And so I guess my pitch to your listeners is that if you are not okay with the chaos at our federal government level, and if you are upset with the cost of living and the increased inflation, then I am your candidate. I'm also a candidate that I was the only Democratic candidate out of the four of us that had never taken corporate PAC money, that was not bankrolled by special interest. And that's important to me because who are you fighting for? Are you fighting for the people of the 7th Congressional District, or are you fighting for your donors? Are you fighting for the puppet masters that are behind you? So, I'm running to make life more affordable for Tennesseans because Washington politicians have stopped doing their jobs, and I think it's time to fix it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for stepping up as a community leader in Tennessee and in Montgomery County. A reminder that Election Day is December 2nd, and early voting begins on November 12th. Be sure to vote.